Hello again, friends, and you're certainly my friends, and welcome to this evening's Talking Town with me, Martin at HDR Martin. You'll find me on Twitter. Jam-packed show. It is our season preview. I know we've technically already had Bristol Rovers and Arsenal and 21s, but the real stuff, the league kicks off tomorrow, and I'm really excited to be bringing you this, I suppose, the Talking Town first ever season preview. We are, of course, we are live on Facebook, we are live on Twitter, and we are live on YouTube. And we really want you guys to get involved, as you already are doing in the comment section there. We've got Joe Dickinson beating Nick Miller to say hi. Andrew Arbin saying hello. Good evening to Rabbitman39. But we want to hear you guys this evening. There's plenty to talk about. There's some news events that's come out this week. There is, of course, the whole league to look at in terms of what we think may happen for Ipswich Town this year. Hopefully a much better finish than 11th, one bad month. And so much. So certainly get involved. And I'll kick things off by bringing in, I won't play the introduction this evening, just because I don't want to embarrass one of the contributors, Matt, who I won't play for legal reasons. So I'll bring in Cruncher first. Cruncher, how are we doing?
Evening, how you doing?
Yeah, you're just adjusting your top there. Don't go topless, not on Facebook, mate. We've got some guidelines to adhere to this evening.
Yeah, it's not 9 o'clock yet.
It certainly is. And how you doing? You well?
Good, yeah. I've had a good week.
Good. I'm glad you've had a good week. So you ready to get into this evening? Obviously, Talking Town normally on a Sunday afternoon. We can be a bit more looser on a Friday night, but there's plenty to talk about, right?
Lots to talk about. Looking forward to, obviously, the kick-off on Sunday.
Huge.
Can't wait.
Shall we bring him in?
Yeah, get him in.
Yeah, here he comes. The word on everybody's lips. The man, the myth. I won't say legend. Matt Phillips. I thought you were going to come in incognito this evening.
Yeah, I thought about it, but you know.
Yes. Well, we've had our words offline, me and you, and we will leave it at that. Right?
Yeah.
How are you? Apart everything else aside, are you well?
Good, thanks. Been to the dentist today. I'm all good.
I did say we had words offline, didn't I?
Yeah. They're all my own, by the way. Not had any knocks out. They're all my own.
They're your own.
I'm all good. I'm all good.
Good. I can see. Victoria Henderson has found how to say hello. Brilliant.
Hello.
She did just message say, what's the link? Oh, it's pretty obvious. Come on, everyone should know by now. And if you haven't subscribed, get subscribing.
There he is. There he goes.
Why is Elliot the Gamer not giving me a shout out, Richard? What's going on? Good evening, Martin and Richard.
Because he knows. He knows. And we've got Peter saying, hi, lads. Not feeling any excitement about the season. Would normally be getting shirt ready and talking to mates to arrange a pub and meet up. But don't worry, Peter, because we've got you covered. Not only on this show, but also on Sunday, the Match Day Ticket Live. Come over and treat it like a pub if you like. Order a pint of the finest and discuss how good we hope it was, or how bad it might be. On Tuesday, you missed a Matt Phillips meltdown, part 1.
I did a couple of drinks, but I was fuming. We lost the children.
A couple of drinks?
Yeah. I don't know. What was wrong with my internet? Was there a rival podcast outside the Media Mogul Mansion from Wirecutters? What's going on?
Media Mogul Mansion. You mean you ain't got a mansion? You ain't got a mansion.
We'll do cribs. We'll do Talking Town cribs one day.
Crib.
We've got Dan Whitty, Adam Flatt, Andrew Laws, Daniel Hill, and Hedger Paul 1. Good evening to you all. So let's get our top marquee signing out, shall we? Signed on a one night. Hopefully, future appearances are in the pipeline, but certainly a one night loan deal from TWTD.co.uk, your number one Ipswich Town fans forum. He is, of course, he needs no introduction, really, because he is really the man, the myth, the legend. That is Mr. Phil Ham. Phil, welcome. How you doing?
I'm very, very good for that introduction. I think that's the best one I've ever had. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Good evening.
I do my best.
Where's the wrong fanfare?
I do. I wish I had time to put a little theme package together for you, Phil. I didn't, sadly. But obviously, Radio Suffolk own the rights to you, so I couldn't get any images either.
Yeah.
Are you? We've already heard from Peter in the chat section there saying he's not excited. Are you excited for the season ahead?
Well, a bit like you, I think we kind of feel sort of a bit as if we're already into the season, don't we? A little bit, because we've obviously had the cup game last week and then the EFL Trophy game in midweek. So yeah, and I actually kind of some years I sort of feel, because I end up going to quite a lot of pre-season games, that you've done so many pre-season games that by the time the season starts, you're kind of already well in the swing of things, and you don't get that excitement necessarily. But yeah, I think from a league perspective, because it's such an important year for us, that to go up from League One this year is such a significant thing because of the impact of the salary cap and all that kind of thing. It is a very significant game Saturday, and very significant that we get off to a good start.
Oh, without a doubt, yes. Especially against Wigan, who, despite all their troubles, and I was discussing this with Graeme Matt this morning, and the video with Graeme Matt will be coming out directly after this live show. Wigan, for all their issues, they're not a Bolton, are they, Phil? They're not playing with with a young squad. They've still got some really good players.
Yeah, they're not quite as badly off as Bolton were this time last year. There's a few names, Joe Garner being Joe Garner and Gary Roberts perhaps being the two
of course,
more notable ones. So, but having said that, I did see a thing going around this afternoon that they've got one player who started their last league game in the Championship, so who's likely to start tomorrow. So, yeah, I mean, make no mistake about it, they are a team we should beat.
Sunday, not tomorrow.
Sorry, yes, Sunday. Yeah. Such a habit, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
But yes. So yeah, really, it's one of those games that you go into thinking Wigan at home, a team that's depleted, that they're not going to get a manager until tomorrow. I don't think. I saw a team sheet from Waterford this evening, and John Sheridan is down as their manager this evening for their game at Bohemians. So yes, make no mistake. If we don't win on Sunday, that's not a great result for us.
Premiership says not far off though. Roberts is about 46 and Garner will be off soon. The rumours today, Garner on his way to Portman Road. Whether that's true or not, I don't think so personally, but
it would surprise me at the moment, because I don't think we've really got the scope in the budget to bring in someone like him, really. And also, how many central strikers do we want? When we play one central striker, do we want another one? I think we've got 4 queuing up at the moment to try and get in the team. So, it would surprise me if we're interested in Joe Garner.
Well, this is it, isn't it? And obviously, do you think someone like Joe Garner, not necessarily Joe Garner himself, do you think a central striker if Jackson leaves? If Jackson leaves, or even then, no? Well,
I was going to say that's. I mean, the other thing with Joe Garner, of course, is he moved to Wigan because he wanted to move back to the northwest because of his children living up there. So even so, I think he would probably not fancy it. But yeah, even if Caden Jackson goes, interesting comments I thought from Paul Lamberts today at his press conference when he was asked about Caden Jackson. You got the impression that they might entertain that deal if the money that was on offer was right. And partly because you've got at the moment Drynan starting, James Norwood you would think would be the starter once he's fully fit, and Ollie Hawkins obviously it wasn't brought in not to play, was he? So you've got 3 players there as senior players, as well as Caden Jackson, and so at least 3 of those aren't going to play if the situation is, if the system is as it is, and all signals from the management and indeed from the owner, I think, as well, is that we're going to play this way. This 4-3-3 is going to be the way we're going to play come what may. And if Jackson went, it wouldn't have surprised me at all if we didn't replace him, and because of the salary cap element as much as anything else.
I don't agree with that, Phil. You're losing, potentially we're going to lose 2 of our better players from last season, Downs and Jackson. I know we're hampered a little bit with the salary cap, but I don't see many teams in this division losing your top scorer if you've got aspirations of being promoted and not replacing him. All these other teams, I see Oxford today, Sam Winnell, another great signing for them, all these other teams are strengthening, and it seems we're going to make ourselves weaker by letting our better players go and not replacing them. I find, especially in a team that doesn't score a lot of goals, we're going to lose a guy who scored 11 goals, 7 assists. I think it's a big gamble if we sell Jackson, but I can see, obviously, with the system they're going to play, he doesn't see him as a wide striker, and he doesn't obviously see him. He's got 3, like you say there, and he doesn't see him ahead of any of them. So I think it's a big gamble selling him and not replacing him personally.
But of course, I mean, we don't know that they're going to sell him. That's the other thing at the moment. And we don't know that Bournemouth, I mean, from what I was told the other day, that Bournemouth, and I think this is a fairly accurate sort of summary of how they view him, they see him as someone to be a squad player, to come in and maybe come off the bench, because you can see what he'd be a good player to come off the bench when you're chasing a game because of his pace. I think that kind of works.
Great option B, yeah.
I think he's
still untested though, any Phil, really, at championship level. He only got 3 goals when he was there.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's been in the championship twice because he was in the championship with Barnsley and they never gave him a first team game. And then he was with us and he wasn't really a great success. Although, you have to say it was a very difficult team to play in, or a very difficult team to sort of make your first steps in the championship in.
How old is Jackson Phil? Is he 27?
26, I think, isn't he?
Look, his agent's in his ear, obviously. He's going to get a big pay rise if he goes to Bournemouth. He's got 2 years left at us, and I think he wanted a new contract. And obviously, with the salary cap as it is at the minute, we're not in a position to give him that. So I think all the sort of pointers is that he will leave the club. I think he'll go.
I'm not so sure.
Good money for him. What's going to be good money for him, Phil? We bought him for what, 1.6?
1.6 is what we paid for him, and I don't think Bournemouth are willing to offer that. I mean, I think that's the kind of that's probably the crux of it, really, is that if Bournemouth offer us enough money, we would probably entertain it. But I'm not sure that they'll offer us enough money, which is the same with Downs. I don't think Crystal Palace. I spoke to someone who knows a bit more about Palace than me the other day, and he said that they kind of see him similar sort of way, really, that they see him as someone that they can spend a couple of million-ish on and maybe stick him out on loan in the Championship for a year. And if he progresses, then he progresses. And if he doesn't, then they can sell him. But, not a huge amount lost on it. Whereas Ipswich see him as a player that they'd have to play significantly more for, because we see him as a sort of, how you use the phrase marquee signing. We see him as a kind of one of our marquee players at the moment, don't we? One of our big prospects. So, and also at the point that you made about our aspirations, we shouldn't be selling players if we're aiming to get back in the Championship. And I think Marcus Evans will look at it like that. He, more than anyone, he probably wants us to get into the Championship, because obviously the finance is so different in there than it is in League One. And of course, the longer we're in League One, the more the salary cap impacts us, and the harder it is for us to keep hold of young players and all those kind of factors.
And it shows that if we'd have done our job last season, we'd have been keeping these players and we wouldn't have been having this conversation.
But we didn't, and even now we still can understand it. Football's a game of gambles at the end of the day, and you gamble one way and you hope it comes off. So in this sense, do you gamble on Caden Jackson's fee being, let's say, 3 million, them not reaching it, and then in a year's time you're still in League One and you've got 1 year left, or do you gamble, get promoted, and suddenly he's a Championship player with you, he signs a new contract, his value is no longer 3 million, it's now more. Football's all about gambles, and you've got to take the right calculated ones at the right time. And Flynn Downs, and I think that's what Evans is doing, really. And I think I was saying this morning, this is the first time Evans could come out with some transfers out with some PR credibility. If he says, look, this is the fee, meet it, or he's not going. Because if Downs goes for 4 million, I don't think anyone sat here or in the chat section will say, well, he's worth a lot more, and we've sold him too cheaply. If he goes for, what we're talking about, Caden Jackson fee here, then it would be bad PR, bad business, bad everything. That's my feeling on it, guys.
Downs is 4 million par for Downs, do you think?
I think 4 million, and then the usual top ups on appearances and whatever. Yeah. I think that they would accept that.
I don't think they'll get to that, does it? Their first bid was 1.2.
Yeah, first bid 1.2, second bid 1.6. I think rising to 2.5 with top ups. Yeah. So we're quite a long way away, I think, from what Ipswich would see his value as at the moment. Yeah. And again, it's got to be worth it to Town, hasn't it?
Yes.
I mean, at the moment, I think Flynn Downs being in the team is worth more than receiving 1.6 million and then bits and bobs as it goes. And also, of course, the 1.6 million won't be immediate. It will be over a period of time in itself anyway. And of course, because of the salary cap, we can't go out and spend it because we can't. We can only have so many players over the age of. We could probably bring in a kid who's under 21, but is a kid on loan under 21 or wherever going to be better than Flynn Downs? And probably not, I would say. So
this is the gamble again, isn't it? Do you gamble in selling him and trusting in Nolan, Hughes, Dozzell, Bishop, and bringing in a kid who can sit behind those? But then we've already got our own kids who can sit behind those.
We've got loads.
Exactly. So
We're going on loan, mate.
well, this is it. Shall we touch on that? Obviously, this week or this morning, Phil, you're obviously on the Zoom call with Mr. Lambert. Potential loans for Dobra, Mizani, and McGavin. Some much heated debate being had on Twitter, even this evening, about is that the right thing or the wrong thing? How do we see this as a panel, guys? I see it as a good thing. I'll get that out there and out of the way nice and early. What do you three guys see this?
McGavin, I can see totally him going out because the midfield is chock-a-block in it at the minute with midfielders. He's not going to get a game. Dobra, El Mazzuni, for me, they should be somewhere around that first team squad. And Dobra's already had interest from Brighton, wasn't it, last season? So he's highly rated. What sort of players have we got to come off the bench that can change a game? That's what I want to look at. I'm not saying he should be in the first team and starting. What players have we got?
Spot on there. That's why they need to go out on loan, though, Rich, because you don't want potential doesn't get met sat on the bench or sat playing on 23 football. Potential gets met. Like El Mizani at Cambridge last year. Yes, injuries hurt him in the end.
Yeah, but we're doing the same thing with the same players that failed us last season. And we were told in the 5-point plan by Marcus Evans, he wants to give youth a chance. And we're sending two really talented players there who could make a mark this season on the first team. We're sending them out the door. And
but only to get experience, not sending them out the door because we don't want them, but just so that they can get games and experience. Look at Luke Wolfenden a couple of years ago going to Swindon. I think that he benefited from going out on loan. Aaron Drinan is another one who's had loan spells in Air United, GAIS, whatever they're called in Sweden. Where else? He was back at Waterford, and where was the other one? Sutton United, didn't he? Had 4 loan spells. I think he's benefited. I mean, he's 22 now, so he's not a young player in the sense of he's not a kid, but he's benefited from those loan spells. We've seen this with players that going back. Simon Milton, even going back some years ago, he went down to Torquay and Exeter on loan, didn't he? And to sort of, so I think it's games. It's men's football was the phrase that Paul Lambert used today.
And I agree with him.
Martin don't remember Simon Milton. He's a lot younger than us, Phil.
Of course I remember Simon Milton, Paul Mason.
You were a little kid then, weren't you?
Yeah.
Saying, but I'd rather, take for instance, we're going to play 4-3-3. It looks at the minute. It looks like Alan Judge playing on the right hand side. I'd rather play Dobra there. Alan Judge, he's a player. He might start there, but he won't stay in that position. He'll expose whoever's playing behind him. I'd rather get a younger player who he can look. I think Dobra's good enough to play in our first team already. I don't think he needs to go out on loan. I really don't.
Yeah, but you're looking at this from a fan's perspective with nothing but passion on the line. Paul Lambert's looking at it from the perspective of if I don't get off to a fantastic start and trusting international Alan Judge, international Emir Hughes, John Nolan, who had a great year at Shrewsbury.
We failed last season.
But their body of work is a bigger body of work to trust than that of Idris El Mizani, who might have a really good 8 out of 10 game one week and then 2 games at 4 or 5 out of 10.
Would get a lot more leeway with the fans if you play some youngsters and playing the same old people week in, week out.
He's been sacked 4 times this week.
Pressure's on him. The pressure is on him to perform. And I listened to your Graeme Mack interview. You're still a big fan of Paul Lambert. You've got me and you've got Matt there. We're giving him 5 or 6 games. If we don't,
that's what I mean.
He's out the door. He's lucky he's still got a job.
Phil, if Down stays, Phil, do you see him getting back into he gets back into the team, right? He walks back into the team.
I don't think there's much doubt. He's certainly one of our best midfielders. It's interesting you say that, and you look around the squad and you think, well, Alan Judge at top level, you could probably say he was our best midfielder. Emmet Hughes, if he fulfills the potential he had when he was much younger, that obviously when he first came in, of course, on loan, he was fantastic. So if he gets to play like that week in, week out, then you're looking at it. But yeah, Flynn Downs, I think all things. If you picked our best midfield on paper, Flynn Downs would be in it. I think, wouldn't he? I don't think many fans would say otherwise.
1,000%, I'm correct. He agrees with me.
There we go.
Lambert said he might not be back in the team Sunday off the back of that midfield performance in the EFL Trophy. I don't see how he doesn't come straight back in.
I agree with that, Matt. Down should be nailed on. He should be nailed 100%. On for Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay, let's discuss Paul Lambert under pressure, because this is the season preview, and we're already talking about a manager that's under pressure, and as I said earlier, been sacked 4 times this week on Twitter. He needs to get off to a fantastically flying start, right? I think we're all agreed on that.
Yeah,
I think already against Bristol Rovers, that was a good performance.
Yeah, the thing about pressure, I actually asked him at the press conference last week, do you feel like you're under pressure? And he kind of, he flat batted it away. So, do I look like a man under pressure? And all that But he clearly is. I mean, after last season, which was, I don't know, worst performance since 52, 53 or something like that. Worst finish since 52.
Feel that.
And it's, I think, and I agree that he was very lucky to have a job still. I think that finishing as low as that with Town, expected to get promoted, or a great deal of expectation that we're going to get promoted, it was a failure without question. And a lot of clubs he would have been fired. There's absolutely no question. I think the fact that there was the long hiatus over the summer and the kind of complications that the coronavirus crisis brought from a footballing perspective, I think the owner probably felt that to have a kind of rudderless ship through that period was not something that was advisable. So he kept the man who was in position. But otherwise, I think there would have been a very serious think about what they would have done in the summer, because clearly the team underperformed. 11th was nowhere near what any of us expected.
And you're right, Phil. And knowing that Marcus Evans has made his fortune off the back of selling tickets, I can't see any realms of possibility how he would have gone out with a new season ticket campaign with Paul Lambert fronting it. Wouldn't have made any sense whatsoever, would it? Going into a second campaign of League One football wouldn't make no sense.
No, I think Mick McCarthy was got rid of for pretty much that reason, that it would have been very difficult to sell tickets with Mick McCarthy as manager. And I think you're reaching a similar sort of situation with Paul Lambert at the end of last season. Obviously, we didn't have that kind of that kind of focus of a last game or a last couple of games where we failed to make the playoffs or whatever, and kind of everyone's up in arms and on the terraces, sort of showing their frustrations. It all kind of petered out with the season being kind of decided in a boardroom somewhere. But
I wonder if he would have done what he did with Keane when he got rid of Magilton and he brought Keane in for just 3 games. I wonder if he'd have done that. Lambert goes, he gets the new man. If the season had run normally, he'd have got the new man 3 games, tail end, bed in, League One campaign next season.
But it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's I don't know. He sacked Magilton as soon as it was impossible to make the playoffs, didn't he? That's what. As soon as he was gone, and he obviously offered the job to Roy Keane at that point. There was one more game, which was the Norwich game, famously, and then got rid of Jim 2 or 3 days later. So perhaps he would have done. You never know. It's. I mean, that's kind of one of the great. Perhaps we'll find out from Marcus Evans' autobiography one day in many years to come.
Potentially so. But then, of course, that run-in was a favourable run-in. Now, I'm not saying we would have made the playoffs.
Yeah.
But then, if you do go on a early season run of form, are you not? I mean, it's all ifs and buts, isn't it? Because you could be sat there and looking, well, he'd turned a corner, he'd found a settled side. There's so many things you could be saying sat here today that we can't, sadly, because of the situation we found ourselves in, which is starting League One yet again. The pit stop has turned into I don't know what it's turned into, but it ain't a pit stop anymore. So Sunday, Wigan. Who do we see starting? Do we see the Bristol Rovers lineup coming out? Phil, Rich, Matt, or is it Camelot set of balls 3? What's the situation we feel?
I'm thinking the same team as played against Bristol Rovers, assuming that Nsiala is as fit as is fit enough. Other than that, I don't think there's any other fitness concerns throughout the side.
What did he do, Phil? What was the injury? He obviously got the injury in warm up, did he?
He felt his hamstring in the warm up, and they said that they weren't going to take any chances because obviously he had that problem in pre-season in Germany last year, where I think he kind of felt something and ignored it, or kind of hoped it would go away, and then he pulled it and he was out for 2 or 3 months. So I don't think they wanted to repeat that. So they kind of erred on the side of caution. But as of this morning, according to Paul Lambert, he should be fine. So So yeah, I can't think that he'll change it, given that he's stated the policy of, if you've got the shirt, it's yours to lose.
What's the latest on Vincent Young? Because it's all gone really quiet, and I'm a little bit concerned, to be quite honest.
He said he hoped he'd be back next week, but I think for training next week, because I think he'll need a couple of games because he missed most of the pre-season fixtures. So yeah, I don't think he's far away. It's Achilles tendons, isn't it? Achilles are quite. It's a thing of players seem to pick up Achilles injuries in pre-season, don't they? I think because of the hard ground more than anything else.
I'm not. Don't talk to me about the hard ground, Phil. Look at the
Don't
pitches.
start these two off.
Look at the pitches they play on nowadays. There's no hard ground. They're not playing on the Rec on a Sunday. I'm not having that one.
Yeah. But anyway, but the wider point really is that Achilles, obviously, they're quite difficult to rest, aren't they? Achilles injuries. So
Did you tell Phil what we're like on here, Matt?
Yeah, he's got the idea.
Did you warn him?
They say
anyway,
that Achilles injury is worse than a broken ankle to recover from. So that's why they're probably being cautious. But it's really frustrating, isn't it? Because we know Kane's going to be one of our top performers.
Yeah.
We just can't seem to keep him fit. We've not even seen him really properly since last October, have we?
He played 9 games for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really frustrating.
Remarkable stat, really, when you think what a big figure he is at the club already, having played just 9 games.
Shows you how good he was.
Yeah, exactly. And get him fit for half a season, and the rest of the season, and it will become a very big factor for us. And people were already after 9 games getting a bit worried that they was going to be interested in the January, weren't they? So that shows how well he did.
He was their player of the year. Didn't play double-figure games.
Yeah. Not even Jimmy Bullard's done that.
Over on Facebook, we've got Matthew Blowers. We've never made the playoffs. Come on, guys. Management team are poor. Get rid. I think that says. What else have we got over on Facebook? I'm getting criticised for not saying our Facebook comments, so bear with me because there's quite a few on both sides. Matthew Blowers, Downs is better than Nolan. Well, yeah, that's not saying much. Judge always seems to run loose. Surely Sears and Lancaster on the wings, Bish, Downs, Dozzell, and midfield. Talk to me about Aaron Drinnan, Phil. No one's mentioned on Facebook Aaron Drinnan, but talk to me about him. Are you surprised, first and foremost, to see him emerge the way he has? And if so, are you comfortable with going into a season for more than Sunday with Aaron Drinnan being the third striker?
I don't know. I mean, when he came in, it's quite a long time ago he came in now, isn't it? I mean, when he first came in, I think it was October 2017, he came in and had a trial, and he won that contract then. And of course, because of the transfer window, he couldn't join until the January. So he's actually been in nearly 3 years, sorry. And so, yeah, when a player's been around for that length of time and he hasn't made a first team appearance, you do think his contract is going to be run out and then he's going to go on somewhere else. But he's had, and some of his loan spells I don't think have been hugely successful. He went to Sutton United in the National League, didn't score there. But I think he may have done with some aspects of his game. May have impressed with some aspects of his game. So I think when he went back to Waterford, they were quite impressed with him there when he had his spell there. And then in Sweden, I think he did all right. And then United, I think he did quite well. Scored more goals there, I think. So. Yeah, he's been fortunate, I would say, in that in pre-season we had James Norwood, who was still coming back from injury. We had Ollie Hawkins, who'd been playing with Portsmouth until July and then joined us, not having trained for a few weeks. So was a little bit behind. And then Caden Jackson got injured. So he was really the last man standing, as it were, as the central strikers, but which sounds a bit harsh on him, but it's probably true. But equally, he'd done well in the pre-season games he'd featured in. He obviously scored 2 in the game at Colchester, didn't he? Which was the first pre-season match. So so I think he's probably surprised a lot of people that he's pushed on as much as he has.
Sorry, there's a comment there from Benjamin Michael. What on earth is happening with? Not the first time he's questioned it. So what is happening with Norwood? So many rumours are falling out with Lambert from multiple sources. Is there any? I've not heard of any falling out between Lambert and Norwood. But it's not the first time Benjamin posted it. So I wanted to make sure it was put on the screen. And put to you just while we were talking about strikers. Sorry.
No, that's an interesting situation. The stories about interest from Dundee United and Fleetwood and Swindon. You kind of think, well, taking on loan. You think, well, what would be in Town's interest?
0.
Like that. would these clubs, this Swindon, Dundee United, would they be able to afford his wages? Because he's on a very decent wage at Town.
No, certainly not.
So I think he's been told. I don't think he's in any huge hurry to leave, but I know that he's been told, we've got no plans to sell you, which I think they've told all of them, that they've got no plans to sell them this summer, because obviously this year is a very important year for Town. So, I think, obviously he had last year was such an injury hit year for him. A lot of the time he was still playing with injury. And he's had this pre-season where he's obviously been rehabilitating still from the operation he had in February. It's probably going to take him a few weeks, but I still probably would say if Paul Lambert was naming the 11 that he thought was his best 11 in this system, I think he would probably put Norwood there as the number 9, as it were, at the focal point of the team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we all would, wouldn't we?
Rich thought he looked disinterested the other night against the.
For the first 10 minutes, I didn't even realise he was on the pitch. He looked really unfit. I thought.
His first game back, though, wasn't it? Really, he's not played barely anything apart from.
He's played a lot of golf. He's played a lot of golf since February. He got a bad groin, and he's been playing golf, climbing in windows. He needs to. It's a big season for him. He needs to do it on the pitch. I've said if he's fit, he'll score 20 goals. I'm pretty confident.
If he gets
fit and firing, James.
If he gets the service, Rich.
Yeah, I'd still expect him, if he's fit, to score 20 goals. We got the midfielders. We got Dozzell. We got Bishop. They can Sears, Lancaster. I think there's plenty of guys there who can provide for him, and I think he'll score. He got 11 goals, didn't he, Martin, with one groin? So
with one groin,
if he gets 2 groins, he's going to be firing.
Spread out, don't we? We need the goals spread out across the team this season. There's 2 ways last season.
Any top team has that. If you look back at the playoff year, the centre halves all chipping in. Berra, Smith, and Chambers were all having goals. Midfield had goals. It wasn't just Murphy. I know Murphy was predominantly the main. But every team has a main striker, but then you have your rest of your players filling in. We didn't have that last year at all. I don't think our defenders scored above 2.
No, a lot of it is if the delivery, isn't it? You've got to have good delivery coming in from the corners. We get a lot of corners and free kicks, but we never really seem to.
It's not good, is it?
No, we don't do anything with them. Chamber
got a good header on Saturday.
Great header, yeah,
really good. But that's what that echoed that, didn't it? It echoed that kind of Berra, Smith, and that Wackle delivery. We were dangerous with Wackle on set pieces.
I think 13 goals between them in the playoff year. I think.
We didn't give Toto enough credit for that goal because he done the NFL role, didn't he? He shoved him right out of the way.
It's a basketball thing, isn't it? Is it called a pick in basketball terms? Where they
it is. Yes.
Good knowledge, Phil.
Paul Mariner told me that one. Name drop. He was talking about some goal, and because obviously he spent a lot of time in America, and he explained it in American sport terms as a basketball pick. So yes, he did. As you say, he did. It was a very well worked set piece, really, wasn't it? And if we can do more of that, we have got players who can take set pieces. Judge, obviously, El Mazzuni. I think probably the last goal Chambers scored from a header from a corner was El Mazzuni at Peterborough. Yeah, about this time last year, wasn't it? Dozzell was another good at dead ball situations. So we should. It's something we certainly should do more of, and we've not for a few seasons, as you say. Even under Mick, who you would think would be very much someone who concentrated on getting goals from set pieces. We didn't last few seasons. We weren't as certainly as good as we had been.
And obviously, you mentioned Chambers there, captain Colossus, Matthew Blowers. Thoughts on Chambers at the moment? Is right back his best position, which obviously makes it difficult because when Camerson Young's fully fit, you would think he's number 1 right back. Or has Chambers still got plenty left in the tank to offer as a central defender? Obviously, I appreciate Phil may not want to give full thoughts on that one, being a member of the press.
I think Chamber would say himself that he's a centre half, and that he really wouldn't want to play right back unless he was asked to in a situation where there was an emergency, and there was an emergency last week. I thought he did really well.
I did. Loved him in there, yeah.
He had no one to mark.
Well, I mean, I have to say, the big thing about last week's game, with all this positivity after winning 3-0, is the opposition really weren't up to much at all, were they? I thought Bristol Rovers were awful. And I think I don't know, having seen Town throughout pre-season, I would have thought the first thing you would do if you're an opposition manager is tell your centre forwards to close our centre halves down and fullbacks down when we're passing the ball around at the back. Well, we were given as much time as we wanted to pass the ball around the back, and actually, you look at two of the goals came out of that. There was no pressure on the ball whatsoever. So, whereas of course in pre-season we kind of gave the opposition more than a few chances throughout the.
They might not get such a easy run Sunday if Joe Garner's playing.
Well, yes,
he'll be right on them, won't he?
Yeah, well, yeah, there will certainly be a foul on the edge of the area at some point where he's gone sliding into someone as they've been Toto or Chamber or someone's been caught in possession, trying to catch him in possession. So yeah, well, I mean, actually, the better teams we play, because I think this is probably something that the poorer teams will obviously try and sit back against us, because obviously they expect us to have all the ball and they'll just sit back in numbers, which I think is what Bristol Rovers did. The braver approach, I think, is to sort of press us higher up in that manner. And I think that the better teams in the division will do that. And it will be an interesting test for us when we do get to play a decent side, how we cope with that. Because I thought the games in pre-season, even Cambridge to some degree, when teams pressed us, we struggled to pass the ball out from the back and played ourselves into trouble on a lot of occasions and conceded. Even Colchester, there were one or two chances in those games that they failed to take that with a decent strike force, they probably would have scored goals. So
there was a skews mix-up, wasn't there, they could have scored from?
Yeah, well, it was difficult to sit at Colchester, wasn't it? Because the quality of the stream was quite poor. So you didn't know quite who was making the mistakes, which you know, some players might be quite glad of to have that kind of.
It's a question for you, Phil. Do you think Toto's enjoying kind of like an Indian summer a little bit? Because I'm sure if Bolton could have afforded him, they would have bought him, wouldn't they, last season?
And I think he'd have gone. I think in January, if there'd have been the option to go somewhere on a permanent move, I think he'd have gone, because I think he felt that it wasn't working out for him here. He's had a difficult time. He got relegated in the first year. He got a horrible red card that shouldn't have happened at Sheffield Wednesday, didn't he? And then the next season, he starts off in pre-season. He gets an injury that keeps him out for 3 months. He then has a bit of a nightmare at Accrington. I think he gave away a penalty in another game, I think, didn't he? Which whenever he came back, he had something unfortunate happen to him, didn't he? So I think his confidence has gone a bit.
But that is a common thing we're seeing amongst the Facebook posters, is that Toto has got that catastrophic mistake in his bag, and you do go from the sublime to the absolute ridiculous.
I think
sometimes.
With Toto, he might be one who benefits from no crowd.
Maybe.
That's not a bad shout. I think
he might.
The confidence side of things, if he'd sort of lost his... And you notice that Paul Lamberts talking him up all the time, don't you?
Yes.
Saying, oh, he's doing really well. And I think that's sort of part of that, trying to kind of sort of get him back to where he was. Because obviously when he was in this division with Shrewsbury, he was sort of the rock at the back of a team that made the playoffs. So I think he's just trying to get that back with him. I mean, he's a decent bloke, I think, from what I know of him when I've met him, and he's as a character. And so I don't think there was any kind of giving up or anything like that. But I just think he thought that it was just not happening for him here. He needed to restart somewhere else, which a lot of players do. And I think it works out for them sometimes. We've had players here.
Hurst bought him and Nolan together as like a package, didn't he? So he was obviously kind of their Hurst lieutenants a little bit, I feel. Yeah,
I think he probably thought they were the two best players in the Shrewsbury team that Shrewsbury actually owned, because I think they had quite a few loan players the year.
They did,
Ben Godfrey, I think, was one, wasn't he, from Norwich? Paul Hurst obviously had a lot of time for him. I don't think he's done too much wrong he's done a lot right at that pass.
Brilliant.
Beautiful. Thread the needle.
Exactly. It was the sort of thing that was back from Andre Dozzell, wasn't it, rather than Toto.
I've long been a fan of Toto, and I've said on this podcast all through the summer, you've got to really keep on with the defender you've bought for money, especially us as a club. We don't buy many players, so you've got to give these players the opportunity to work their way back. Now, I wasn't saying necessarily to start him, but he's worked his way back through pre-season, and he's there on merit. He is there because he's played well through pre-season, and it's exactly the sort of situation I was detailing, during the summer, that he could find himself in. Go on, Matt.
By the same token, Martin, we've spent, Phil can correct me if I'm wrong, haven't we done $750,000 on Donatian?
Yeah, well, fair amount. He's probably one of the more expensive, but yeah. And I don't think he's going to get much of a game.
No, he won't.
He's got a bit of an injury at the moment, another right back who's injured. Is
he someone? I mean, we're not going to obviously get $750,000 for him, but maybe he will free up a space in the squad.
Yeah, but the problem is, given the fact that everybody in League One and League Two is essentially broke because of the coronavirus crisis, no one is going to afford his wages, I would say, let alone a fee. I don't really see many fees being paid in this division, do you? And certainly not low. I don't know. No, I mean, I think he's probably one where he might be sent out on loan somewhere with someone being able to pay a bit of his wages. But other than that, I don't really see. I don't really see him playing a part, and I don't see us getting a fee for him.
Yeah.
No. But then we brought KVY in, and that kind of limited his chances straight away, didn't it?
Yeah.
From last summer. And then it's all about luck sometimes. And Donatian, at a time when he might be playing right back, is finding himself injured. So again, it's all about luck, and sadly he's on the wrong side of that one. James Chidwick will Indaba play much this season? Is he ready for League One? If Nsiala goes down again, which we hope he doesn't, but if he does, is Corey Indaba ready to go for Sunday? Do we know? And if he is, do you feel once he's got the shirt, he won't give it up?
I don't think he's going to be fit for Sunday because of this dead leg that he picked up. It was really just a very nasty injury, didn't it? It looked like he'd had a bad clash of heads, but actually he sort of landed awkwardly. And at the press conference this morning, he said that they got to keep an eye on that, and so he was a doubt for Sunday. I don't think he'd start. He might have a place on the bench, but he's done very well in the games that he's played. I think. I don't think he's let himself down, and it will be just a case of getting in. I mean, it's like so many players. It's such a big squad, isn't it? So and if you're going for this policy of everybody keeping the shirt, then it's difficult for people to then get an opportunity. So, but equally, if you're playing everybody week in, week out, chances are you're probably going to get 1 or 2 injuries. So people will probably get an opportunity at some point. But yeah, I think he might be another one that goes out on loan, because obviously we've got Chambo and James Wilson, who haven't played at centre half this year. So, but yeah, he's certainly one for the future. And if you're going to play this passing out from the back style of football, he's a centre half that likes that. I mean, the pass that he made for the sort of just ahead of the Town goal against Arsenal in the week, when he played the ball wide to Freddie Sears to put the cross into Alan Judge at the far post just before the goal. And I mean, that was a terrific ball out, really, for a centre half to play that ball all the way out to Freddie Sears in sort of left wing position. So yeah, he's very comfortable on the ball, and I thought he did really well actually against Arsenal.
Left-footed as well, isn't he? Is he left-footed?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
And he plays fullback as well, doesn't he? Which is, that might be an option for him.
Was he a midfielder, Phil, when he came to Town?
I think he has played midfield.
Yeah,
I
they
think
said he was a
that to me.
Yeah, they said he was. But he looks comfortable on the ball. I really rate him. But I think it's interesting. We've got 5 weeks, I think, shorter season, haven't we, this season? And like last season, it was rotated. We had to rotate the players, Lambert said, because we've got a long season. We've got 60 games. Now we've got a shorter season, and it seems we're not going to rotate the players. So it's quite sort of interesting take. Has Marcus had a word with him about rotation?
No.
I think there's clearly been a massive change, and where that comes from. I mean, I think Marcus is more involved in the football side than he ever has been. I think that's absolutely true.
We're worried, aren't we, Martin, about that?
Oh, shivers down my spine, that sense. I'm sorry, it does.
When he came down a couple of weeks ago and sort of met, or a month ago now, I suppose, and met with Lambert and Lee, O'Neill and various people, he met with pretty much all the first team squad, I think, and spoke to them individually, which is unusual, really. I don't think that's ever happened before since he's been here. And I think the kind of, he has outlined to Paul how he wants the team to play, or rather how he wants, that kind of Ipswich way, that sort of philosophy. I think he's not going to say, I want so-and-so to be playing this sort of role in the team. But, he's outlined the philosophy that he wants to play a passing game and all those kind of things that were in that 5-point plan however many years ago. And I think he kind of reinforced that that's how he wants things to be. And
That'd be my take on it as well, Phil.
But not player selection, guys. Sure.
No, I don't think he's going to go as far as.
We've got no evidence of that.
But that's what Rich was asking though about the rotation, and I don't think Evans would overstep a boundary of saying how you pick a player or when you pick a player. It's just we want to play when we do pick our players, we want them to play in a certain.
But it's interesting. You're saying a way of playing where Lambert, when he came in, he wanted to play 4-3-3, pass it out from the back, and then it got clouded, didn't it, with pre-season last year where Jackson and Norwood scored a lot of goals, and then he went with the 2, and now he's gone back to. He's only going to play one central striker. So
complicated, Rich. Perhaps you
I think he did.
I think they felt they needed to go more direct in League One. I think that's one thing. And then they had 2 strikers who were scoring goals. And it was interesting. You started off 4-4-2, didn't they? And but we weren't controlling games, were we? I thought that was an interesting thing, that we were winning games and we were scoring. So then they switched it to 3-5-2 to get 3 in the centre of midfield, so that we get greater control of games. And then I think that worked for a little while, but we then gradually form sort of dropped from there. And then I'm very disturbed by that picture.
Yes, so am I.
And gradually things sort of fell to pieces. And I think they got into that thing of just constantly changing to try and find a sort of solution, to get things working again.
I think we even had. Did Alan Judge play? He played up front one game last season, didn't he?
Yeah, I think at one point we had Judge playing off some of it. He was playing as sort of number 10, wasn't he? With someone with kind of Dozzell sort of as an advanced midfielder as well. So it was almost kind of like sort of
when Lambert came in. When Lambert came in, Phil, he had Gary Roberts playing that lone striker role, didn't he?
Jordan Roberts.
Jordan Roberts.
He's not been
Gary Roberts.
Well, that's because there was no central strikers here, were there? That was the problem, that all the strikers had, or rather, he didn't really rate anyone as a number 9, I think.
I've got to say, Phil, that when you look at Lambert's stats, almost 600 games as a manager, and his playing career and all that kind of thing, it seemed like a bit shambolic, really, didn't it? It was almost like he was throwing the kitchen sink to see what would work. I've tried this, it didn't work. I'll throw this at the wall, see if that works. Do you know what I mean? I expect better from him. I expect better from him, having been around the game for so long.
Yeah, I think that's possibly an element of that. I think there was, I don't know, I think they were sort of not, I mean, actually, when you talk to them, they kind of, rather than say, because we look at it, I think most fans and me look at it as saying, well, we didn't win, what did we win? 4 games in 21 in the league after the win at Rochdale on Bonfire Night, which is like, obviously is early November. And that's quite a long time of a season to go. I mean, obviously it did end in March, but but that period up to Christmas, I don't think they felt they were playing that badly. They weren't winning games. When you talk to the management and Leone and people like that, because they always talk about things going wrong in January and February, a couple of bad months. Whereas they look at that period before Christmas, where we weren't winning games, but we were generally getting a point out of quite a lot of them. Whereas I think most of us would probably look at it a bit less charitably and say, well, actually, we weren't playing terribly well. We should have been winning games against, I forget who we were playing at that point, but you know what I mean? And
definitely.
So I don't know, but I think they were trying to tweak it to get a formula that worked again, and of course it didn't. And I think then they had they lost at Lincoln, didn't they, at 5-2, and they had this big hour meeting in the dressing room afterwards where where clearly the rotation policy was thrown out after that, wasn't it? Because that period after that, there was much more of a kind of sustained approach to the system and the formation.
Was there a mutually for the dressing room? We don't want the rotation anymore.
Clearly, I mean, it was one of these meetings where I think kind of the management just said, well, look, what do you think, lads? Because clearly it's not working, and people obviously expressed that as amongst their opinions. And from there, obviously, there was a period, wasn't there? December, early January, we did quite well, didn't we? We got back to the top of the league. But then things fell away. I mean, how much of it was psychological, I don't know. I think that having had the terrible season in the Championship, when things started to go wrong again, whether there was that kind of sort of psychological weakness in the squad. Do you know what I mean? That kind of, we've felt this before, and heads dropped collectively, and because it was still largely the same squad, wasn't it, that were playing, and I just wonder whether there was that kind of weakness, and perhaps that's something that Paul Lambert has thought about as well, because now he's brought in people like Stephen Ward, and he obviously wanted Richard Keogh, kind of characters who with a bit more sort of leadership he's in the squad at the moment. So
I keep saying oh, go on, Rich, go on.
I said it'd be interesting to see what happens if we have a bad run this season. Is he going to throw it all out and then go 4-4-2, or will he really stick to what he belies in?
He might not get the opportunity to mix it up. Might not get the opportunity this time.
No, that's what I was going to say. I don't think the fans. No, first wobble. It's not a wobble. It's a full blown.
There won't be fans there. There won't be fans there, so no one will be shouting at him.
Yeah, but fans are still important, and not shouting at him directly. But you're talking about fans returning at some point. You want fans to be eager to return and not wanting to go, oh, really?
We keep saying, Phil, on the show, well, I keep saying every week, it's all about this winning mindset, isn't it? And I feel like with Ipswich, we should almost like take on this Barcelona mindset. They play their game regardless in the new camp, whether or not whoever they're playing, Real Madrid, whoever's bottom of the Liga. And I feel like Ipswich should get into that groove. We're wearing this UEFA Cup kit, the 40-year anniversary kit. Get into that winning mindset. Look
at the
Peterborough.
But you look at the figures. You look at them figures today. 10 wins in 49 home games. That is shocking.
The losing mindset.
That is dreadful.
Our squad on paper shouldn't have them stats, should they, Rich?
We don't play on paper. We don't play on paper. We could all say. I see Mark. What did Mark Heath say about the squad, Matt? Was it?
I don't know. But I tell you one thing.
Quality.
No.
Yeah.
But I think there's. I mean, Lambert did get a lot wrong last year, but I think players, if they were honest with themselves, they never really hit top four, many of them, apart from maybe KVY, and he went off injured for large parts of it. So I think there's a big truth in getting the shirt, but then keeping the shirt. And I don't think enough players last year did enough to keep the shirt. Because if you look at the squad and the players that were picked, Flynn Downs did enough, and he was picked consistently. Players that had a consistent year of consistently being good, that is, were consistently picked more times than they weren't.
But there was no pressure on them because they knew that they might play one game, then they'd be out, but then they'd be back in.
But there should be, because there should be the pressure to not go one in, one out. But that's a whole can of worms that we have got into many times. But looking at next year now, who do we see being Ipswich Town's Player of the Year next year from the current crop of players? I don't think we had one this year for reasons that we all know. So who do we see? Who wants to go first with that one? Oh, well, you've upset him, Matt.
I'd like to say Kane Vincent-Young, because I'm a massive fan. I think if we can keep him fit over a season, it'd be fantastic. But I'm now getting worried that we're not going to keep him fit because we haven't seen him since November 2019. And here we are going into the new season. He's still not fit. So that's a worry to me. But I would love to say him because I think if he has a good season, Ipswich is going to be top six quite comfortably.
Moss?
I'm going to go for Andre Dozzell. I've been really impressed with him in these two games. And I know there's a lot of people out there think that he's a bit flimsy, he's a bit weak. He is the only player we've got in that midfield who's got a brain, who can pick a pass. You know, he's a quality player. And I'll tell you what, like I'd listened to your interview with Graeme Mack when you said about Liverpool, Martin, we're interested in back in. You don't get interested by Liverpool by being not a very good player. No. I think personally, look, it's a massive season for him. I think he's out of contract end of the season, but I think he can. I think he can grab that shirt. He can keep hold of it, and I think he can really show what he's all about in this team. Because I know what'll happen if he leaves. He'll go to somewhere else, and you'll see him week in, week out. He'll be one of the better players, you know. I think he's a really good player. I honestly think he could play in the Premier League. I do. I think he's that good.
Okay. Before Phil gives his answer, we've got Matthew Blowers with Wolfenden and Dozzell is too good for many of our side. Phil, who do you see being, or who do you see being Town's Player of the Year this year?
Dozzell is an interesting one. I was just listening. I totally agree with all that about Andre. The thing I would say about him is that whether I missed it, by the way, my power went on my machine.
Put 50p in, Phil. Put 50p in.
I said Kane.
It's and this was alluded to in the press conference this morning, that how often has he played 15 games in a row? He made his debut when he was 16 and he's now 21 and he's never had a long spell in the team. and he's been in this position that
Who's that down to, Phil? It's probably a bit of both, isn't it? It's the player, but I think a lot of it is down to the management. You've got to have a little bit of belief in someone.
Yeah, and bravery, I think.
Definitely.
As well. Because how many games under, and not just Mick, but probably Paul Lambert as well, where Andre's come into the team and having not played for a month or 2 months, and at half time we've been 1-0 down, and the player that gets the hook is Andre. And probably you could say this for other young players as well in similar circumstances. And it's really because when things aren't going well, it tends to
be the easy option.
The inexperienced player tends to be the one that gets hooked. Now, and then of course he doesn't play for another month or 2 months. And of course he had a year where he was out with the injury, which was an awful injury for him to get at that point when he was just starting to, that Birmingham game, he looked like he was becoming a proper player, didn't he? And I think that if he gets into the team and stays in the team for a long period, we'll see the Andre Dozzell we've all been anticipating seeing for a number of years now. So he could certainly be a potential man of the match, a player of the season. Goal scorers are the other thing, aren't they? If you're going to get promoted, you've got to have people scoring goals. And so it tends to be the year we made the playoffs. The man who was the player of the year that year was Daryl Murphy, because he scored a lot of goals. If we get someone who scores us 27 goals and gets us promoted, then I imagine that whoever he is, whether it's Aaron Ryan and James Norwood or
a chance,
or anyone, whoever it is, that they will be the player of the year, won't they?
Yes, absolutely. I think, but back to Dozzell's point, he's been a victim of a manager maybe that needs to fight for his own survival a little bit, and obviously you tend to go with tried and tested when you're fighting for your own job. Paul Hurst, so it's good to see Lambert rewarding Dozzell, and hopefully Dozzell can just keep performing, because you do feel if it does have a wobble, the first name necessarily out of the team would be someone like Dozzell, who for all his passing ability can be sloppy in key areas at times because he's a young player. A bit of what we were saying at the start of the show in terms of young players going out on loan. You want those players making mistakes on somebody else's time. If you're a manager that's a little bit, on the edge somewhat.
I mean, that's a very good point, really, that over the last so many years, we've not been a team that's been very consistent where young players can be brought in the way that you would hope. Do you know what I mean? When George Burley was managed, for example, people like Kieran Dyer and James Scowcroft and whatever, they could be brought in and actually, it wasn't so much of a kind of risk in a way, because we were a better team and a team that was doing well, and they kind of, it was an easier environment for them to come into.
Yeah, and the gaffer was more settled as well, wasn't he? If Dozzell was 5 years older, coming in at the back end of the playoff year with McCarthy in charge, things may well be different for Dozzell, because there was that settled period before the anti-mix, stuff started.
Do you think he feels the weight of his dad's name there? Do you feel like he's in the shadow of his dad, considering he's such Ipswich royalty to us?
I don't know Andre very well at all, but I don't know. It must be quite difficult growing up and kind of having a father who is kind of a name and at the club. I mean, I don't know. In some ways, you might look at it and think that if it doesn't work out for him this year, he is probably best off going to another club where there's perhaps less expectation on someone called Dozzell than there would be here. Probably Tottenham's probably not the best place for him to go to. But, where it's all a bit more neutral in a way. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't got that kind of that weight of expectation behind him that he has here. But I don't know. I don't think it's kind of a case of... I just think he's been a bit unfortunate with circumstances in a way, and that managers perhaps haven't trusted him. And there's been a bit of politics there at times. I think that Paul Hurst probably didn't play him in the early stages when he came in, because he was trying to persuade Marcus to bring John Nolan in. You know, to give him
you've hit the nail on the head there, Phil, with that word trust.
That's a travesty.
That's what it is.
No, I think it is true. I think it is managers and bravery. I think that's exactly the sort of they're part of the same thing, I think. And I don't think that kind of I don't think he's a typical Mick McCarthy player, for example. And in that period. I don't think he was really what Mick. And the other thing, of course, is that his ideal role is the same role that Cole Skuse plays. And when Mick was here, Mick wanted Cole Skuse in full stop because he built his hands around him. And but he's got his opportunity now.
I do agree with you, Martin. You reckon he needs Downs with him? I do agree.
He'll be the person that really misses Downs the most, because Downs will do so much work next to him that goes unnoticed, but allows Andre. I'll start calling him Andre from now on. Andre to do the work he needs to do. How about a young player of the year? Who's going to really break through and grab that sort of mantra this year? Who do we see? Because I know a lot of young players are going to get on loan.
It's difficult to say, isn't it?
Let's try and name one if we can.
I'd like to say Jack Lancaster.
Yeah.
Good shout.
Obviously, they're looking after him because he's obviously had some couple of bad back injuries. I would hope within a few games. It's all about taking your chances when you come in. But I see him play on the right hand side of that front three, cutting in on his left foot, and I think he can get goals. I think he'd be a bit better fit for that position than Alan Judge.
But he's not featured yet, has he, Rich? He's not featured in the 2 games.
No, I thought Tuesday night it would have been sort of the ideal opportunity. When I see the team come out, I thought it was a bit. I don't know. He's gone from rotating loads to even in the EFL Trophy, we're playing our full first team. And is that going to be the case going forward in the other 2 games? Because if you're sending out Dobrell, Mazzuni, McGavin, them sort of guys, you think that was the sort of game that they would be playing in. So look. Jack Lancaster.
Lancaster for Rich. Matt?
It's difficult to say, because I would say Dobrell would be my choice, and I think I've said it on the show previously. But if the rumour is to be believed, and Lamberts was looking to get them on loan, and maybe he won't feature until next year. So I'd like to say Dobrell, because I think he's an exciting player. He said he was not overawed in playing at the Spurs ground, was he, in that pre-season game?
No, but he was at Accrington Stanley earlier in the season.
Well, I mean, I've said to you before, I liked the fact he got a red card in that game. I actually quite liked.
You love it.
Because he showed character. He showed personality. He showed up.
Probably savage, mate.
He showed up.
It's tough, isn't it? It's tough because for 2 reasons. One, that if we're going to play, actually tough because it's such an enormous squad of starters. That how many young players are going to get a chance to play regularly, which is part of why there is the thought that they'll go out on loan.
That's part of the 5-point plan, I thought, playing youngsters.
Yeah, well, yes, I think it's but yeah, I mean, I think we've ended up in a situation really where we've ended up with much too big a squad for a variety of reasons. One of which is obviously we've had 3 managers in how many years, so we've got players of each of those eras still. In fact, actually, we've still got Chamber, who was actually a Paul Jewell signing, so we've got players from 4 managers, haven't we? And then I think in terms of, you look at the academy players that have come through, we've got, how many of them are central midfield players? There's quite a lot of them, aren't there? I think it's almost a case that at some point someone should have said, right, you're the one for us. I'm afraid you're going to have to go, because not all of them are going to be able to play, are they? Do you know what I mean? At the same time. So someone at some point, and it looks possibly as if it's going to be Andre at the moment, is going to end up leaving on a free transfer because and go somewhere else and be a success. Because
is he out of contract, Phil?
Yeah.
There's not a 12-month option in there.
No, well, they took the option, didn't they? In May.
This is the option. This is the option.
This is indeed the option. So we've ended up with kind of, and also on top of that, we've got people like Teddy Bishop, who's spent 5 years, largely injured. But they've all had hopes for him. So we've ended up with kind of like too many players, really, I think, full stop. But anyway, to answer the question, rather than go around the house.
I love listening to you, but please.
Well, I think, and Darber, obviously, is one that's not been mentioned. I think if he gets his chance and impresses, I think he could come through as a regular. Another name that's not been mentioned that someone who works in the academy or worked in the academy said to me a while ago that he thought would make an impression is Tommy Hughes. But again, he's got a bit of a problem in that he plays in midfield, and half the squad plays centre midfield, and possibly could be sent out on loan again. But I suppose yes. But and of course, so far, Aaron Dryden's probably been the one that has come from nowhere in the early stage. So there's the heartening thing, I suppose, to say about that is that we can pick 4, 5, 6 young. We've not. No one said that Owensuni, I don't think yet. Another one that could possibly be. If that is the thing, if they get their chance,
There you go. You're saying all these names, but where's the pathway to them in the first team? Because they're blocked by John Nolan, Emir Hughes.
well, that is true. That is true. But there's always this kind of what's the word? You've got this two sides to it. A football club. The main aim of the football club is to get promoted, isn't it? Ultimately, this season and any season, developing young players sort of comes after that, doesn't it? Really. I mean, even though obviously this is the history of the club and players will get better and will have a better squad because of it. Ultimately, a manager wants to win match A, then match B, then match C. Do you see what I mean? And then get promoted.
Trophies. So win trophies. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so sometimes it does sort of mean that the development perhaps comes after that.
It might be next year because Martin said that it could be a transitional
year.
season. If we didn't get out of this league this season, we're going to have a massive turnover of players next summer.
Well, I think regardless, because you've got players in the last year of their contracts that the club might not renew and probably shouldn't renew, and young players like El Mizani, the Dobras, etc., who are on that cusp of maybe not quite being ready enough for 46 games this year, but 1 year of a loan spell like Wolfenden, and then next year they're ready. And obviously with the salary cap being in place, if we're still in League One, you've got that flexibility then, haven't you, to move a bit of money about and really build a squad to a manager's tailoring. That's my feeling of it. I just think there's young players on the cusp, not quite ready enough, and older players that really, if the club were honest, would like to move on.
I think that's true. I certainly think that if they could move more of the senior players on, they would, in order to give younger players. It's a difficult situation. I think it's difficult to manage. Roy Keane used to talk about this, that when he was at Sunderland, that his squad was too big and you had people on the edge just kind of chipping away and not being very happy and being a bad influence around the club. So it's quite a difficult thing for a club to manage. And it does mean that, I don't know, it's difficult to manage that thing of developing players, but also picking what you see as the best 11 each week to win a game. And a manager is always probably going to err towards picking the team that wins the game, because he knows that he doesn't win 2 or 3 of them or 3 or 4 of them. The crowd starts shouting and he's gone. 6 and he's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. We've got 2 sort of predictions left to make. But first and foremost, before we do, I just want to give a quick mention to Sore Feet for the Beat. Go to sorefeet.live for more information, including how to donate to a great event. Rich, do you want to say any more on that?
I was a bit disappointed the other day. Matt commented on it. I think you posted it on Twitter and it didn't get a lot of retweets. And I
because Matt posted it.
Yeah, Matt posted it. And, oh yeah, probably. Maybe I should do it. Oh, come on, give him some love. Yeah, look, it's a great cause. Malcolm he's a great guy. You know, so let's all get behind him. Who won the golden ticket?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
Alex Griffin. No idea. I know Alex Griffin was really going for it on his Instagram.
All right. I don't know. I don't know.
Malcolm deserves something from the club.
Isn't he doing the end of the month? He's walking from Carlisle to Ipswich.
Yeah, Carlisle football ground to Ipswich Town.
Amazing.
There you go. September 27th to October the 10th. So good luck to him, and obviously go to Sorefeet. Where was it? Sorefeet.live for more information. Right. So we've got. Let's go for overall League One dark horses of the year. Who do we see having a surprise year this year? Who wants to kick us off?
It's a very difficult year, isn't it? I think, because you don't know how clubs have been affected by the squad changes that have been required because of players leaving because of the coronavirus, financial situation, and all those kind of things. So you look at clubs and you think, how strong are they going to be? I mean, Bristol Rovers were a decent enough side last year. I know they only finished something like 13th, but they weren't a bad team when we played them by any stretch. And last week I thought they were dreadful.
They beat us at home, didn't they, Phil? Beat us at home 2-1, wasn't it?
They did indeed. So I think it's a very difficult division to call, full stop. But and you look at I was looking at the betting earlier. That it's Sunderland and Peterborough, the favourites, aren't they? Yeah. And then Oxford and Portsmouth, and then us and I forget who it was. Us
Fleetwood.
Fleetwood, I think. Fleetwood.
Yeah.
Who are Graham Max picked for the league title?
Fleetwood.
I nearly crashed the car when I was listening to that on the way home. I'm thinking,
Probably surprised. I don't know. Peterborough surprises me that they're favourites. Or joint favourites with Sunderland because I mean they obviously
got a lot of players in, haven't they?
They've a good record in this division, haven't they? I think, and they've a good record at getting rid of players or selling players for decent money, and then recruiting well from non-league and wherever else. So I can see why they'd be sort of amongst the favourites.
quick question for you, Phil. Why were we never interested in Sammy Smodics? He was on our doorstep at Colchester.
I really don't know whether we looked at him or what. I don't know. He's one of those players who's constantly linked with us, isn't it? But hasn't he? But nothing's ever happened. No, I don't know. You don't. I mean, they'll have watched him because clearly they go and watch Colchester quite a lot, and they'll have watched him coming through, let alone sort of once he made the first team. So they'll be very familiar with him. But evidently, you don't know. Maybe we'll discover at some point there wasn't. So we don't always learn about everything that's gone on, do we? So there may have been something we don't know about.
I'm going to go for Gillingham for my dark horses.
I really hope not.
Paul Lambert's favourite man, Steve Evans. Look,
also mine.
Look, I don't like the guy, but he's a decent manager. He gets a team playing, and I'm not saying they're gonna win the league, but I think where did they finish? They finished above us, didn't they? I think they were 10th. Yeah. I think
they would have done though.
Them, and I think Swindon might do decent.
I thought Swindon, but they've lost. I think they've lost something like 40 plus goals. They've got rid of like 3 of their top scorers, I think.
They got the main man. They got Pittman in.
But we'll see.
I think he'll score goals. Who do you think would score goals most? Do you think him or Norwood would score most goals in the same team? Do you know what I mean? If they were, I think Pittman would probably score more goals. I don't know.
I always thought Pittman looked better off the bench for us, Phil.
I think he does. He's good at that sort of coming off the bench role, definitely. But he's a real predator, isn't he? If you
like him,
he'll score goals.
I still have Norwood.
Perhaps more to his all-round game, maybe. I don't know. But I don't think he's as clinical. But there you go. I think he's a good signing for Swindon. But as you say,
he scored goals wherever he's been, hasn't he, Pittman? He scored goals wherever he's been. I'd have Pittman above Norwood every day of the week.
Would you?
Definitely.
Interesting. Who's my choice? I feel like I was really impressed with Doncaster last year, how they passed the ball around against us. I feel like if they could replace Marquis, they've never really done that. If they had a goal scorer in there, then they might threaten.
James Coppage is still going, isn't he? Last season.
Still going. So they play some nice stuff. I feel like Blackpool are going to do all right. They got one of the lads from Swindon. I think his name's Anderson. I think they've got him in. I think they've recruited quite well. So I think them two are going to do okay. I feel like Fleetwood will do all right, but I think someone could come in for Barton.
You're picking the whole league here, Matt. You're only supposed to get one team.
The whole league's dark horses. The whole league.
We're doing
Joey Barton. I'd love him at Town.
I feel like you won't see the season out, Fleetwood. I feel like someone's
love him at Town.
Are we looking forward to Joey Barton, Lee Bowyer?
Yeah.
Box office clash, are we? We're looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good one, that one.
Who's yours,
Barton?
They're an interesting team, Charlton, aren't they? They're an interesting team. Charlton, Hull. How are they going to...
Who knows how Hull are going to do? Yeah, exactly.
No.
Well, Hull, I mean, they look like they're one of those sort of crisis clubs a bit, don't they? As if they're going to kind of plummet from how they were doing in the Championship. I think you might be right about Joey Barton. I think if the job in the Championship becomes vacant, I think he's someone that, particularly if Fleetwood start the season really well, I think when you get that sort of sacking season 2 months in, the clubs will start looking around and thinking who's doing well in League One, and he's obviously and because of his profile and whatever as well.
Who are you picking, Martin? Who are you going with, Martin? Who's your...
I want to hear what Phil's going to say here, yeah?
I haven't said anything, have I? I'm still a bit... Charlton, I actually think they were quite high up in the betting, weren't they? Which surprised me, given the sort of problems they've had off the field. So you don't quite know how things are going to develop
I don't think Charlton have not lost many players, though, have they?
Not as far as I'm aware of, no. And obviously they've been playing at a higher level. And it's, 2 years ago they came up, wasn't it? I think they only had 1 year back in the Championship. So they could...
What's the lad up front? Is it Bon? Is it?
Yeah,
I think he's a good player. He's a good player.
Chantry boy, isn't he? I think, and
yeah.
Town as a schoolboy. So it's a sort of There's so many teams you can look at and think that they're going to do so well in this.
Yeah, there's over 20, isn't there?
Oxford, we've not mentioned Oxford, really.
I think Oxford will win the league. That's who I'm going for to win the league.
They stayed slow, didn't they? They started slow last season. Who knows? They've lost out to Wigan in the playoffs. I feel like they could start slow again. Who knows?
They've got James Henry. We like James Henry, don't we? We'd like him at Town.
They're big fans.
Yeah, didn't they? Paul Lamberts tried to sign him, didn't they?
Yeah, remember that? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I remember. He's a good player.
Before I give mine, are we saying Charlton, Phil, or are we?
I think I said Oxford, didn't I? Even though they're second favourites or something. Yeah, they're not really dark. Plymouth, so that we don't have to go back there again.
He's going through the whole league as well, man.
He's picking everyone I didn't.
Brilliant. Okay, who am I going to go for? I can't. Oh, it's a real tricky one. I didn't think I was going to have time to answer the question. I'm going to go for Burton. I think Burton will surprise a few people. I think Burton are often overlooked. Yeah, I do. I think Burton will surprise a few people because after a quick Google search of League One teams, they're the first one to come up. So I wasn't ready to answer the question. So why not? Why not? They're in the right league. That's all I know. So where will Town finish this year? That's the all important. Where will Town finish? I'm going to go first. 100 points, 100 goals. Manager of the year, Paul Lambert. Boom. I'm done. Over to you three. Over you.
Well, we're doing better than last year. I think that's for sure. You'd hope, wouldn't you? I don't know. It's impossible. Based on what we've seen so far, I wasn't overly impressed with us in pre-season, I have to say. I was quite surprised that people were quite so bullish about us in pre-season. I think there were positives and negatives. We kept the ball well. The games like Cambridge, we just passed the ball around without getting anywhere with it at all, which was why I was... but at the same time, while at the back, I thought we sort of played ourselves into trouble a lot. I thought we were... in a lot of the games, we were vulnerable on the break. Tottenham game, for example, the first goal in that, and the goal against Cambridge was like that.
Look at the goal that Arsenal scored. The second goal Arsenal scored. Yeah,
again, it's exactly that sort of goal.
Wide open
to that. So I was quite surprised things were people were so bullish. But then obviously the game last week, we all came away positive. 3-0 win, first game of the season. You can't really say fairer than that, can you? And we did dominate. I mean, it was very comfortable 3-0 win. It could have been 5, really, couldn't it? I think Drynham missed a chance, and Sears missed a decent chance as well. So, if we're facing a lot of teams that are like Bristol Rovers and taking a similar approach to Bristol Rovers, I think we'll do all right. I do. I think we'll be playoffs or better. So I'll go for third. There you go. That's hedging.
Matt, how about you, Matt?
I feel like there's a couple of teams out I think are going to do better than us. I certainly think Peterborough are going to finish above us. I feel like top 2 is going to be out of our reach. So I'm kind of agreeing with Phil. 3rd, 4th. Top 6 is par, right? If we finish outside the top 6, I'll be fuming. And looking at our squad, that should be a top 6 League One club, shouldn't it? So I feel like maybe I'll agree with Phil. Maybe 3rd, maybe 4th. But I feel like Peterborough got a better team than us. I think they'll be in the top 2 for certain.
Mr. Cruncher.
Look, I think we've said before, we've got 6 very kind fixtures to start with.
Yeah.
So we've really got to if we can get some early momentum, in them first 6 games, I would say 15 points. I can't see us... Well, we shouldn't lose any of them first 6 games, I don't think. Personally, I'm still worried where the goals are going to come from. Yeah. You're selling Jackson, probably won't replace him. I would say we might scrape 6th if we're lucky.
You 3, come on.
If we're scraping 6th, then Lambert ain't going to be the manager, is he?
I was just going to make the same point. I think if we scrape 6th, then there'll be a change of manager, definitely. I'll change mine to 2nd then, just to kind of on goal difference ahead from Matt's team. I kind of Sunderland are obviously going to be the team.
We need to be beating some of them teams, Phil, that we didn't do last season.
Yeah.
I think Fleetwood were the only top 8 team that we beat. We need to when we play them. We need a statement, don't we? We need a statement win against one of them big teams early. If we can get a result against them, then the supporters will have a bit more belief. If it's another defeat, it's going to be, oh, here we go again.
Yeah, I think there's a lack of belief. I think it's an interesting way of phrasing it, because I was sort of talking about it the other week and saying there's not a huge amount of expectation, but I think it's belief is the thing. I think there's expectation.
Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's good. I remember the team under John Lyall. There was no expectation that season, and we went and won the league. So it's not always the teams who you expect to do well. Look, we're going to say Sunderland, Portsmouth, Oxford, Peterborough. They're probably going to be up there. Fleetwood are going to be up there. We hopefully be up there. So to get in that top two, it's going to be really tough when all these other teams are strengthening and we haven't really.
I think we've strengthened in a different sort of way, though, when you look at it, really, in that we've got Jack Lancaster back from injury. We've got Teddy Bishop, who's been out for ages and hopefully will be fitted. We've got Dozzell, who is a year older than hopefully a bit. Downs, who I think will probably stay, with a touch wood, that is a year older. That El Mitsune's a year older. Do you know what I mean? All these players have developed a bit. So we've strengthened that way, I think. I think Stephen Ward, I think, will be a big influence in the dressing room, which is another side of things. And I think he's going to be a decent left back. Another left back, by the way. We talked about young players. We didn't mention Tommy Smith, did we? But I think it's another one I think will play a part in the season, because I don't think that Stephen Ward at 35 will be able to play 58 games or whatever it will be over the course of the season. And Miles Kenlock, I do think that probably Tommy Smith will probably be ahead of Miles Kenlock by the end of the season. But I think I think that there are different sort of. We've not strengthened in terms of making loads of marquee signings or whatever, but I think our squad is probably stronger because of the development within it.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah,
I feel optimistic listening to Phil.
Should I sign a new manager? Do you think I should be the manager then?
Yeah, put your CV in, Phil. We've got 3 recommendations here. Yeah, don't worry. As a podcast, we'd back you. Don't worry, we'd look after you. But we're done, gents. League One season preview is in the books. All that's left to be done now is the League One campaign to get underway. So the three of us will be back Sunday, 11:30, with our match day ticket coverage of Wigan. Phil, I can't thank you enough. You've been brilliant.
That's all right.
And hopefully we'll have you on through the open invitation. Hopefully we'll have you on through the season and we can discuss the highs of Ipswich Town Football Club. Absolutely. There is no doom and gloom here, as Nick Muller says. Oh no, wait, he didn't say that. He said this: doom and gloom trio. No, none of that. None of that. But we'll catch you all later. And Phil, thank you ever so much, my man. And enjoy the game on Sunday. I take you will be there.